I will wait upon the Lord who is mighty to save. I will wait upon the Lord who is mighty to save. No fear, I'll not fear. No fear, lo ira o Adonai, lo ira maya aseli adam. Adonai, lo ira maya aseli adam. Adonai, ve'ozurai va'ani eresunai. Adonai, ve'ozurai va'ani eresunai. Lo ira, lo ira, lo ira, lo ira. Oh, the Lord is for me. I'll not fear. What can man do to me? The Lord is for me. I'll not fear. What can man do to me? The Lord is for me as my helper, and I shall gaze upon them that hate me. The Lord is for me as my helper, and I shall gaze upon them that hate me. No fear, I'll not fear. No fear, lo ira o Adonai, lo ira maya aseli adam. Adonai, lo ira maya aseli adam. Adonai, ve'ozurai va'ani eresunai. Adonai, ve'ozurai va'ani eresunai. Lo ira, lo ira, lo ira, lo ira. Oh, I will wait upon the Lord Adonai El Shaddai.
Welcome, everyone. We've got brothers Joe, Cyrus, and Mark with us here today, and I follow up from what happened last meeting. So I'm just going to get straight into this. It was just amazing last time, and Brother Mark shared so many crazy, interesting things, and he's going to share some more things today. And Brother Cyrus also shared some really interesting information, and this time Brother Joe is able to be with us because he was unfortunately unable to be with us last time. So let's just get straight into this. Brother Cyrus, if you could open in prayer, please, and then we'll get started with Brother Joe.
Will do. Avinu Shemani, we thank you for this opportunity that we can come together as brothers and sisters. We can share your word. We have that commonality in your word. It is universal in the hearts and the minds and the spirit of your followers, your believers, those who trust in you, your children. I would pray blessings upon each and every person here this evening as we discuss the biblical times that we live in, that prophets of old wanted to see this day. Here we are. We're getting the opportunity that you have given us to see it, to witness it, and to share it with others. Forgive us, Father, of our many sins. We would ask blessings to every hearer that is here this evening, that you would bless them, guide them, and direct them, and every speaker, that you would do as well. We ask this in your name and that of your Son, Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Thanks, Brother Cyrus. Brother Joe, the floor's all yours.
Well, okay. I don't know. I only got part of through what you guys were talking about last time. I never got to finish the video. I got interrupted. So I'm not sure all that you discussed. And I'm not sure who's all listening, so I'm just going to start from the beginning. And that way I can chew up all of Mark and Cyrus's time so they won't be able to talk today. We teach here at sightedmoon.com. And just in case somebody doesn't know, it's admin@sightedmoon.com. You can always write me there because I've heard that you're having trouble finding me. We teach about the Sabbath and Jubilee years. In Genesis 6:3, there's 120 of them. So we just laid out 120 Jubilee cycles and counted them. What you're looking at here is the Gregorian calendar of 49 years per Jubilee cycle, starting with the creation of Adam. So that's 49 years before 3788 in the green, top left corner. 49 years before that is when Adam was created. When you count 120 Jubilee cycles, that brings you down to 2044, which is the end of the 120th Jubilee. So after 2045, or 2045 begins the seventh millennium, which is what Hebrews 3, Hebrews 4 is talking about, the rest that we all want to enter into. We can go to the next slide. So this one is it's the same one. Oh, okay, my bad. Okay, never mind. So if we want to go to the next one after that, this is the current Jubilee cycle that we're in right now. And it started with 1996 and goes to 2044. So in 2005, I began to ask people questions about this and try and explain what I was seeing, and nobody knew anything about it. All my pastors, all the teachers I knew, we don't know when this is, so you're just guessing. But I wasn't guessing. We had 2 Kings 19:29 to show us that the sabbatical jubilee year, the 49th and 50th year, was 701 and 700 BC. And from that, just that one verse, you can log every sabbatical jubilee year throughout history. So that brings us down to this time. So knowing when they begin and when they end. So we teach you that in our book, Remembering the Sabbatical Year 2016. But that's just the quick stuff in a nutshell. The 70 weeks of Daniel 9:24 to 27, they are 70 Shabuah, 70 Feast of Weeks. So that started at the Exodus, and we show you the chronology in our charts. And from that chronology, it brings you down to the 120th Jubilee, which is the one we're in now. And it's also the 70th Shabuah, or 70th Feast of Weeks, from the burning bush, from the time that Moses was told to go and get the people. And he was told 7 times by Jehovah to go and get them. So that means after the first 7 Jubilee cycles, King David would be born, anointed by Samuel, anointed by Judah, and anointed by all of Israel. That's your Mashiach, that's your anointed prince. King David in Ezekiel is said to be the anointed prince. So the subject is King David. That brings us down to this Jubilee cycle we're in now. And in this Jubilee cycle that you're in right now, King David is going to be brought back to life. That's the amazing thing. He's the king that's going to rule during the 7th millennium. So we have a number of scriptures telling us that Jehovah is telling us that King David will be king during that time. So I don't have those scriptures in front of me. Ezekiel, Hosea, Amos, and some others I forget. But you can go look them up. Or you can get our book, The 2300 Days of Hell, where we explain that and all of that, what I've just said, in great detail. In Daniel's prophecy, it goes on to say that in the middle of the 70th week, in the middle of the 70th Shabuah, in the middle of the 70th Jubilee cycle, something was going to happen. It said that Israel would be made as if they never were. And that's pretty scary, to be made as if you never were. So from 2005, when I learned this stuff, until 2020, I've been telling people we're going to be at war come 2020. Well, and I also said I was going to take down my website if something didn't happen in 2020. And as you all know, something happened in 2020, but it wasn't war. It wasn't the war that we were expecting, that I was expecting. COVID hit in 2020, and we began to go on a lockdown around the world. And sadly, the brethren missed it. The brethren were focused on anti-vax, anti-authority, anti-everything else, but they weren't reading the Torah. They weren't studying it. So in Leviticus 26, it tells you that in the first sabbatical cycle from 1996 to 2002, terror would be the dominant theme. Leviticus 26 tells you in the second curse there that the dominant theme would be extreme weather and getting hotter. And from 2003 to 2009, of those 7 years, 5 of them were the hottest years on record at that time. And 2005 is when I began to learn this stuff. The third curse of Leviticus 26 in the third sabbatical cycle is from 210 to 216. That's pestilence. And we began to hear about bird flu, swine flu, a whole bunch of other different diseases that were becoming rampant. Ebola came out at that time. And the world was changing, but we weren't ready for what was coming next. The fourth sabbatical cycle is the one that I focused on and saying that it represented war. But the curse is actually sword, plague, and famine. And 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, a young lady told me to take another look at the word sword. And we looked it up, and sword means war, right? No, it doesn't. It means drought, famine, dryness. It can also mean war, but it means also drought and famine. In 2018, all the rivers, 2019 and 2020, all the rivers in Europe dried up. All the major rivers in Europe, China, South America, and the United States were drying up. That's drought. We began to see forest fires at the same time. Western United States, Western Canada is all on fire. And I really didn't understand. I was looking for war. I was focused on war. But these other curses were coming true. So, a lot of people say, well, you got it wrong, therefore you're a false prophet and blah, blah, blah. Okay, I don't have an angel telling me what to say. I don't have God telling me in a vision, here's what you're looking at. I have the Torah, the same books that you all have, and I'm looking at it and I'm reading it. But the only thing that I have different than most people is I now understand the Sabbath and Jubilee cycles, when they are, where we are in that cycle. And it's with that understanding that I'm able to see these things. So the fifth curse, which begins in 2024 and goes to 2030, is a curse of famine. And famine that is going to be so severe, it says in Leviticus 26, you're going to eat your own sons and daughters. That's the cycle we're in now. Each of these curses in Leviticus 26 is compounded. That means they're added to the next one. And since 2005, if we want to go to the temperature charts, right there, there's one. That's the latest temperatures as of May. No, this one, I can't see it. May of this year, June of this year. We're breaking all records on those two charts. Temperatures continue to go up. Why is that significant? Because it ties into the curses of Leviticus 6, Leviticus 8, Leviticus 9. And Leviticus 9:16, it says it's going to get so hot, so stinking hot. That's not what it says. That's me putting in an extra word there. It's going to get so stinking hot, the men are going to curse God, but they won't repent. And this cycle here, this cycle of a temperature going up continues. And as the temperatures go up, the weather becomes more extreme. We have friends in Nebraska just reported hail, almost fist-sized hail coming down on their property a couple days ago. And that storm is coming through here, I think, tomorrow. So we used to look up and look at the clouds and, look for images in the clouds. Now we look up and dread seeing dark clouds. Are we going to see a storm? Excuse me while I change it. Are we getting an echo there? Is that just me?
I'm not
Anyway.
hearing any echo.
Okay. So the temperatures are going up, and that's part of the curse. We want to go back to that other Jubilee cycle I was telling you about, the 70th one. Yep. So right here, we got the 69th and 70th. One of the things we figured out in 2005 was the covenant made with many. And that started with in 1972 with the United Nations Environmental Program. And it's for one Shabuel, 1 week. And we began to tell people that the United Nations Environmental Program would end in 2020. The name has been changed so many times that it's hard to keep track. The last name it was called was the Paris Accord, which President Trump signed out of in 2016, but he couldn't get out of it because of their clause that it had to wait until 4 years had expired, which was 2020. At the same time, Britain had signed on to, in 1972, to the European Common Market. And they were able to get out of that, called Brexit, again in 2020. So we got those two things coming together at the same time. And it's fitting this pattern that I'm seeing developing here with the 70th Jubilee cycle of Daniel, with this 120th Jubilee of mankind. And the more I look at the Jubilee cycles and see the patterns developing, the more I'm understanding it. So we have Passover, we have Yeshua dying at Passover, and everything about Passover, the Exodus, all those events are tied up or wrapped up in his crucifixion. The lamb being sacrificed, no bones broken, Psalm 22, Eli, Eli, Shabachthani. So it's all this stuff is coming together for Passover. How do the fall holy days fit into this? Where do they fit in? So I did it was just an experiment just to see, because I understand the Jubilee year and the 8th day are very similar in teaching. Shavuot also is very similar to the 8th day and the Jubilee year teaching. So when you know these things, you can do stuff with it. So I'd made 2045, which is the next Jubilee year. I made it the 8th day feast. And I counted back 7 days to the feast of Sukkot, or the opening of the feast of Sukkot, which would be the year, when you do it as years, as 2038. 5 days or 5 years before Sukkot would be the Day of Atonement, and that represents 2033. And then 10 days before that, or 10 years, is 2024. Okay, that was interesting. But is it right? It doesn't mean anything. Well, if we want to go to the next slide, next one after that, this one, yeah. So then there's a saying, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the last days. I believe that's Luke 17. And then Luke goes on to say, as it was in the days of Lot, so shall it be in the last days. Well, what happened in the days of Noah? What happened in the days of Lot? They were eating and drinking, marrying, buying and selling. The exact same thing that all of us do every day. Well, we don't get married every day, but we're buying and selling, right? Eating and drinking. So is that a sin to do that? No. What happened in the days of Noah was it was judgment. It was judgment on the earth in the 4th year of the 6th sabbatical cycle. And I'm counting from right to left on these cycles. In Lot's day, it was the 3rd year of the 6th sabbatical cycle. So Noah's day of judgment is the 4th year, because it's the first of Passover, or the 2nd month. Again, the 2nd Passover. In Lot's day, it was Passover again in the 3rd year. And both of these are pointing to something in between, which is the Day of Atonement, which would have been 2033 in our time, when we use the holy days to count backwards like we just did. Is that correct? Well, if 2045 is the beginning of the seventh millennium, then all end time prophecy has to take place somewhere in here. So between now, well, actually it was 2005 when I was looking at this, but now it's 2024. All end time prophecies got to take place before 2024 and 2044. You got 20 years. But unless those days were cut short, no flesh would be saved alive. So where is judgment going to take place? Judgment begins with the Feast of Trumpets. And judgment lasts for 10 years or 10 days, which in this case is 10 years. So from 2024 to 2033 are the 10 years of judgment. Shabbat Shuvah, the year of return or the day of return, is 2030. So every Sabbath during the 10 days of awe, the Sabbath that lands during the 10 days of awe is Shabbat Shuvah. It's a day of return. Okay, so that's my general thing. But then here's one more. If we go to the slide you just before this one, this is the 7 years of plenty in green from 2230 to 2236. I believe that's BC. No, that's not BC. That's after the creation of Adam. Those are the 7 years of plenty during Joseph's time. Now, I almost threw this out because it didn't make any sense to me. Then there's 7 years of famine from 2233 to 2243. And that ends in the third year of the sixth sabbatical cycle. So I have this other proof here. Now, it's not documented in the scripture, so I can't say, here's a real concrete proof. But here it is, showing us that the same middle of the sixth sabbatical cycle is a time of judgment. As it was in Noah, as it was with Lot, so shall it be in the last days. A time of judgment is right in front of us. And those 10 days of judgment, when that shofar is blown during the Feast of Trumpets, is when we have got to start getting ready and repenting of our sins and make ourselves white so that our names will be found in the book of life at the end as the sun sets, when the last Tekiah Gadola is sounded. As the sun sets, the last trumpet sound, the last trump in 2033 when Satan's locked away. So that's what I teach. That's what I've been presenting. And where are we now? So in Daniel 9, can we go back to the 120 or the 70th Jubilee slide? Go back one more. Yeah, that one. We've been saying that something was going to happen in 2020, and it was the sword. Now that it's happened, we can go back and we can look at this and realize it wasn't the sword, it was COVID. COVID was the major worldwide event. Jehovah doesn't do anything in the closet. He does everything out in the open. 2020, Jehovah sent COVID. Every one of the curses that I've explained to you, the terror, the weather, the plagues, famine, and sword, every time I explain them, the brethren come up with some crazy conspiracy teaching to take credit away from Jehovah. And it's made me furious. And many of them get upset with me and they get mad and they storm off. I really don't care. Jehovah is the one sending these things. Not some men sitting in the back room inventing the new world order. That's totally out to lunch. Jehovah is the one doing this. So when we realized that COVID was the instrument here that we should be looking at, we began to look at the date it was announced. COVID was announced on March 22nd, March 11, 2020. And March 11, 2020 is when I was keeping Passover. So we shot for sure this is a sign. It's on a holy day. Daniel 12, third or second last verse, it says that from the time that the daily is taken away, 1,290 days shall go by. So we started counting 1,290 days from March 11th. And I was so sure something was going to happen, but nobody's listening, nobody believing anything I'm saying. So I go over to Israel, and we do a tour there, and then I sent everybody home, and I went looking for the abomination to be set up. I knew where it was going to be set up. I knew where the holy place was that was talking about. It's Golgotha. And I'm over there looking for it, and I'm thinking, this is stupid. This is one of the stupidest things I've ever done, because it says once you see it, you got to flee. Yeshua said, when you see the abomination spoken of by Daniel, to flee. Do not get your things, just go. And the place that I was looking at, there's one road out. And it's so busy a road that you can't move. You can barely walk out it because the cars are so jammed up. I thought, this is a suicide mission. What am I doing here? Well, nothing happened. That was September 22nd, 2023. 1,290 days from March 11th. Well, we began to rethink, okay, we know this is the proper count. COVID is the count, but what are we missing? And then we realized that it was not March 11th, it was March 25th, when Prime Minister Netanyahu locked down Israel for the very first time. Nobody could go to synagogue. Nobody, and the holy days were about to begin. Passover for them was about to begin. So that was Nisan 1 in 2020, according to the Hillel calendar. 1,290 days later was October 6th. And I decided to stay and look for this abomination on October 6th on Golgotha. Just to see if, I'd almost given up hope. I thought we got something terribly wrong. I don't know what I'm missing, but I'll stay and look. You all know what happened on October 7th in Be'eri. All hell broke out. And we're still at war to this day because of that. Had I been down in Be'eri, which as Cyrus showed me one time in a study that he did, is Kadesh Barnea, and Kadesh means holy, and it's in the corner of Israel. It's in the corner of the holy area. If I'd been there, I might have been killed. As it was in Jerusalem, the concussions from the rockets exploding overhead were scary enough. Even my curtain, when I opened my window, the curtain would blow every time a concussion from the explosions came. I didn't know they could do that. But, I don't know, 2,000 rockets sent up in the next couple of days there? And nobody could get out of Israel. So we didn't know exactly what we were looking at, but we knew something big had just happened. And then I'm asking Jehovah, I'm in the Kidron Valley. I'm saying, what is going on? Why are these rockets still going? They're usually 10, 20, 50, then they stop. No, this is thousands going up. And then somebody sent me a video of the slaughter that had taken place down in Be'eri at the rave. And as I watched it, my heart was sinking. All these young people being killed. They're keeping Shemini Atzeret. And where is God? Why is no one stopping this? Why is all this stuff happening? And then the part started again, and the video began from the beginning. And on top of the DJ's tent, I seen the Buddha statue. I says, what? Why is there a Buddha statue at this party on Shemini Atzeret in the middle of the desert? Now, Shemini Atzeret, they dance all night. So I figured that's what they were doing, and they just called it a rave and blended the two together. No. This was the same as the golden calf. And after the golden calf, 3,000 people were killed by the Levites. Here it is again. They're not dancing at Shemini Atzeret. They're taking advantage of God's holy day and the Sabbath and no regard to God, and they're having a rave, a whatever it is. La La Land. And at 6:30, they began to be attacked. You don't have time to go get your coat. You don't have time to go get your things. Run, Yeshua said, run. and they ran. Now, in February, I went to this place to see it for myself. It was a death trap. They came from both sides. And there's no way they could get out of here. And to run through the fields, it's just sad. So many young people killed for not obeying Jehovah, for putting up a statue of Buddha. Now, Buddhism in Israel is okay. Christianity tries to convert them. Buddhism doesn't, so they're okay with Buddha. And then paid for it. So now we had a solid lead. The 1,290 days began with Prime Minister Netanyahu, March 25th, 2020. 1,290 days later is October 6th. That's when the statue was set up. The next morning is when the attack began. You should have said, when you see it, run. Well, they didn't. But then Netanyahu went on to lock down Israel on September 18th and September 25th of 2020, and then again for a fourth time on December 27th. So just out of curiosity, we began to record those dates and to mark them down when they expired. But then it also says in Daniel 12, there's a 1335 day. Blessed are those who wait to the 1335th day. Well, the 1290 day happened, and then the slaughter took place, and the hostages were taken. At the 1335 day in November, I believe it's November 21st, they came to an agreement to release the hostages. And 4 days later, the hostages began to be freed. I think it was about 50 got freed at that time, over the week or so. And then they stopped and went back to war. So it seems to be fitting. We then looked at the next one, and the 1,290 days from September 18th and September 25th was March 31st and March 8th. What happened on March 31st? Nothing. But on April 1st, Israel killed the 3 generals and the 7 other officers of the Revolutionary Guard at the Damascus, beside the embassy in Damascus that belonged to Iran. And the Iranians were ballistic. On April 13th, Iran launched the largest missile attack in history against another country, and Israel shot every one of them down, except for one. So 1335 days after that, guess what's going on again? 1335 day mark, they're talking about releasing the hostages again. But it doesn't happen. It just fizzled up. The September 25th, 2020, 1,290 days later, brings you to April 8th, 2024. April 8th, 2024, you all know what happened. Cyrus talked about it. The Aleph Tav solar eclipse over the United States. What happened? Okay. A few days after that, Iran launched their missile against Israel. And then on April 19th, Israel retaliated. Now, the second 1335, or the third 1335 date, again, they're talking about hostage release. And again, nothing happened. It fizzled out. The fourth lockdown that Netanyahu did was December 27th, 2020. December 27th, 2020. So that brings us to July 9th, 2024. What happened on July 9th, 2024? Nothing. But on July 13th, an attempted assassination was made on former President Trump. And then today, President Biden says he's not going to run again. What's that got to do with everything? Okay, just hold that thought. Have I still got time, or am I eating up everybody's time yet?
we haven't actually got a time limit per se. We're just going with the flow. So
Okay.
go for it.
Okay, so now back up. In Revelation 6, it talks about the 4 horsemen. The white horse going out, and a lot of people believe that's Jesus. Then there's the red horse. Then there's the pale horse. Then there's the black horse. Now, I posted a video. In fact, I can just post this right here in the chat. You guys can all copy this, and because we're not allowed to talk about these things. If we talk about them, we're going to, there, I just posted in the chat for you. You can copy that down, save it for later. I'm going to explain in that video the 4 horsemen. And basically, you're watching the 4 horsemen right now on the nightly news. And they are spreading across the Western world faster than you can shake a stick at. Those 4 horsemen show their flag every time you see a Palestinian flag. And if you can understand what the Palestinian flag is representing, then you'll know who the 4 horsemen are. That's the first 4 seals. The 5th seal are the saints beneath the altar. Who are the saints beneath the altar? Those are, 250,000 people, Christians in Sudan that are slaughtered. The Coptic in Egypt, all the Christians in Syria, Iraq, and Iran that have left, all the Jews that have left those places as well, and Yemen. All the Jews have been driven out of Morocco, Algeria, Egypt. How many of them have been killed? Now, are these Christians underneath the altar? I'm not going to judge that. That's Jehovah's job, not mine. But there's a lot of dead people because of these 4 horsemen that are out there riding. And they are being elected into office now across the United Kingdom and probably this fall across the United States. I know they're being elected in Canada. I don't know about Australia, but I suspect they are. The 4 horsemen are riding. Those 4 seals have been going for a long time. We first reported this in our video about the blood moons back in 2012. But because of hate crime laws in Canada, I'm not allowed to say anything. So we say it discreetly, like I'm trying to do here today. So again, go and watch the video. And that's going to also explain the number 666 to you and where it comes from, what it looks like, and where it's being displayed on their forehead and on their arm. So you can stop all the nonsense about the barcode chip and implanted chips and all this other stuff that you're all inventing or spreading. Just go over to the Bible. Just read the Bible and look at the news and see what fits. So that brings us up to today. And today is July 21st, 2024. These 2024 to 2033, if they're the 10 years of judgment, so this is in my book, The 10 Days of Awe, I wrestled with which way this was going to go. And I didn't know, so I just did it according to the plagues of Egypt. And I said the plagues of Egypt are Jehovah attacking the false gods of Egypt. And I brought that forward. What does that look like today in 2024? So the first god that he attacked was the god of the Nile, which is Hopi. Hopi is representing Ham. And Hopi, Ham, represents God the Father that many people pray to in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. That's Hopi, the Son, Ham, the Father and the Son, and the Holy Ghost is the wife of Noah. And it's the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost that they're praying to, but it's Ham as the Father and Ham as the Son and his wife, which is Noah's wife, that he's committing adultery with. So these are the gods that Jehovah attacked in Egypt. And what do they look like today? Well, the River Nile. What's being dried up? Turned to blood. What's being dried up today? All the rivers are being dried up. So when they're dried up, they become stagnant. They stink. All the fish die. Exactly the same thing. And it's as thick as blood. So the second god, I forgot what it was. The frogs. The frogs. That's the Holy Spirit. That's the god Hathor. So, well, it's not Hathor. It's not called, it's Hectus or something like that. But anyway, if you look at the gods of Egypt, we explain them in the 10 Days of Awe book, you'll see the curses that go with them. And you got to take that curse from Egypt, make it bigger on a worldwide scale, and plot it in here. So that second curse comes out in 2025. This third curse, the third god in 2026. All 10 of those gods that are attacked by Jehovah, I place one for each year from 2024 to 2033. The last one represents Satan. That's the one that's going to be killed at the very end. So that's when Satan's locked away. So on top of that, I'm wrestling with these seals of Revelation 6. And they don't really count anymore because they are already happening and they're taking place all the time through this Palestinian flag that's flying everywhere. So then we begin to look at the trumpets, the 7 trumpet plagues. And the first trumpet, let me just read it to you. I'll read the first trumpet plague. So we're going to go to Revelation 8. And actually, we got to start with the last seal of Revelation 6. And when he opened this is verse 12. And when he opened the 6th seal, I looked and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became as black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood. Now, we've been trying to make that into a solar event, a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse or a blood moon. And I believe it's none of those. I believe this is going to be an actual major earthquake. But there's a part of me that's wrestling with this being, it doesn't have to happen before the 7 seals take place. So but it also does. So I'm conflicted on that. Does it or doesn't it? The stars of heaven fell to the earth. What are the stars of heaven? We got to see that when Iran attacked Israel. When you see all the rockets going up and coming down, and you see the Iron Dome going up and intercepting them, it's just like the stars of heaven are falling on the earth. As a fig tree casts her untimely figs when she is shaken by a mighty wind. When is that? That's telling you a very specific time of year. The figs are ready in the 5th month. So an untimely wind would be prior to the 5th month. The 4th month is an ominous month as well. And the heavens departed like a scroll. So you look at a nuclear bomb and you look at the way the heavens roll up in that cloud. When it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved on the earth in this place. So this giant earthquake with this turning the sun to darkness and the moon to blood, this could all be a major nuclear attack, is the way I'm seeing this 6th seal here. And that's when all the kings begin to cry and saying to hide on this. So when we go to the 8th, Revelation 8, these first 5 verses here is talking about the incense of the saints, or the incense altar, and the little container that holds the coals. I believe that altar that is talking about here is Golgotha. Golgotha is the altar Yeshua was killed on. Golgotha is where this is going to take place. And I'm looking for an angel to come up there. And then it says it's going to take this censer that holds the coals. He's going to throw that against the earth. Verse 5, and the angel took the censer, filled it with the fire from the altar, and cast it into the earth. And voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake occurred. Is this the same earthquake? I don't know. Is it a different one? Again, I don't know. But we then go on to say that each of the 7 trumpets line up with the year from 2024 to 2030. And then the final bowls are in 2030 to 2033. Again, I don't know for sure. I've got no angel telling me. I'm speculating, but this is the best fit I have. Again, what I've done is I'm matching up the holy days here. Satan's got to be locked away in by 2033, as it was in the days of Noah, as it was in the days of Lot. And the 10 days of awe, 10 years, and the trumpet plague playing out at that time. If I'm wrong, and I could be, then all these curses, all these plagues has got to be fulfilled before 2044. So if you got a different theory, great, knock yourself out, plug it in here. But before 2044, it's got to be completed. And unless those days are cut short, no flesh will be saved alive. So it's even less than 2044. Because 2045 begins the seventh millennium, and there is no debate about that. That is a rock solid, for sure date. So, where does your theory fit in here? We go back to Revelation chapter 8. And the seven angels which had the seven trumpets prepared, this is verse 6, prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mixed with blood, and they were cast on the earth. And a third part of the trees was burned up, and all the grass was burned up. So if we go back to the chart with the temperatures, if we can slide over the slides there, Mr. Producer, Stephen. Keep going, one more. This one. This is June. That's that's May 2024. That's May 2024. We are above what the United Nations wants to keep us at, below the 1.5 degree. We are now above it. And that first curse, first trumpet plague, that I believe starts in 2025, is going to be so hot that a third of the trees burnt up. So I'm looking at this in the same way. Can we go back to the 120 or the 70th Jubilee cycle, the one we've been looking at? Thank you. One more. In the same way that the curses were compounded from the first sabbatical cycle to the second, the terror was compounded with the severe weather. Both those were compounded with the plagues. All three of them were then compounded with the plague, famine, and war. And we did have war. Russia invaded the Ukraine, and Israel and Gaza began in 2023, right? So the war cycle has taken place. Maybe not the way I thought it would, but it did. And now we're coming into the famine cycle. So these trumpet plagues of Revelation 8 are going to be spread out over those 8 years. So by the time we get to the 2030 or 2033, 1/3 of the trees will be gone. They don't all have to be gone in this first year. It's going to get hotter. It's going to get hot. How hot is it out west there? You're in Arizona, and you're wearing a toque. It's getting hot out west.
It's only 106.
Only 106. Yeah. My dad's in Arizona, and he said it was 120, and he's going out to golf that day. My dad's 86. He's crazy. But it's still hot. It's been hot there all summer, from Mexico all the way up to Oregon, all the way up into Canada. Even Newfoundland. We had to evacuate Labrador City because the forest fires were about to attack the city there. But they got turned around by Jehovah. So go back to Revelation 8. Let's finish reading it. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail mixed with fire and blood. Why is it blood? What has the blood got to do in there? Are people being killed? Are the rivers drying up? What is the blood? And they were cast on the earth, and the third part of the trees was burned up, and all the grass was burned up. It's going to get hot. Now for the second curse. And I want you to think of the second curse, and there's always a lead up to it. So we're leading into the second. I believe the second curse is 2025, starting after Aviv in 2025. And the second curse sounded, and as if the sorry, and the second curse, sorry, and the second angel sounded, as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and a third part of the sea became blood. And a third part of the creatures in the sea, those having souls, died. And a third part of the ships was destroyed. What is this telling you? What is this telling you? What is the great mountain? What is a mountain? You all know what a mountain is. A mountain in Bible prophecy represents a nation. We're all going to go up to Jehovah's mountain, Jehovah's kingdom, the mountain of Jehovah, his kingdom. So this great mountain is going to go into the sea. Now, I haven't been able to read any of the chat, so I'm not keeping up with any of the people here. So I'm sorry. What's the sea represent in the Bible? The sea represents people. This great nation is going to go down in flames into the people. What just happened today? Chaos and confusion entered the Democratic Party today. Is Kamala Harris going to be strong enough to lead the nation? We're going from weakness to weakness. Is she going to be able to lead the nation? This great nation, the greatest nation on earth, the United States. The United States is the descendants of the 10 lost tribes. They are that tribe that has the name applied to it as of Israel. Judah is the state of Israel. But the name Israel belongs to the 10 tribes, of which the chief tribe is the United States. Is that great nation, that great mountain that's going to be going down in flames into the sea? The sea represents people. Is this a civil war? Is this utter confusion? Is the election going to be won by 10 votes in some ballot box that somebody's going to cheat on? Are we going to go through all that again? Is Kamala Harris, can you imagine if Kamala Harris wins? Can you imagine if Trump loses or wins by 1,000 votes? What will happen to the United States in 2025? We have a tough guy, Putin, pushing his weight around in Europe, threatening nuclear attack if the United States gets more involved in the West. We got China pushing its weight around in the South China Sea, taking on the Philippines for some little islands so they can extend their reach, threatening Taiwan, threatening Japan, threatening South Korea. Again, that's Revelation right there, folks. That's the kings of the East, China and Russia, that the book of Revelation talks about. You know, the kings of the north and the kings of the east coming against the king of that's going to invade Babylon here. And not Babylon, invade the Middle East. We are that close. And if you look at the charts here, whether you agree with me or not is irrelevant. You only have that little bit of time left. Because by 2045, King David will be here and ruling again. Our Messiah, our anointed prince, will be back. And I believe that takes place in 2033 when the saints are changed and rise up to meet him at Shavuot. So what we're watching on the news, the attempted assassination of President Trump just last week, the resignation of President Biden, and now the Republicans are going to go after him. If he's not good enough to run, he's probably not good enough to be president. It's going to be chaos. And what's going to happen in the rest of the world? And we're electing Islamic leaders over top of us in the Western world. What I'm showing you is what we see coming here. So again, just push this a little bit further. I just want to push it a little bit more, and then I'm going to stop. And the second angel, Revelation 8, verse 8, and the second angel sounded, and as it were, a great, no, I've already read that one, sorry. Revelation 8, verse 9, and the third part of the, no, we did that one too. Third angel, verse 10. And the third angel sounded, and a great star, burning like a lamp, fell from heaven. Uh-oh. And it fell on a third part of the rivers and on the fountains of water. So I just asked all my people to watch this series on Turning Point about the bomb, starting in World War II, how the bomb was created and how it been passed down to us today, and how close we've been to a nuclear war in 1963 and 1970 something. I believe it's 3 times we almost went to war. This great star, I believe, is a nuclear bomb again. And it fell on the third part of the water. When you drink the water from the radioactive fallout, you're going to die. Fountains of rivers, and the same star is called Wormwood. And that wormwood is related to that place that blew up in Ukraine a number of years ago, back in 1983 or 4. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died from the waters because they were made bitter. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was stricken, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so that the third part of them was darkened, and the day did not appear for a third part of it, and the night also. Again, to me, that's reading like a nuclear winter. I'm speculating. I don't know. Again, I haven't got an angel telling me. What I do know is the Sabbatic and Jubilee cycles. And I know that these are accurate. And I know that in 2045, the 7th millennium of Hebrews 4 begins. You want to enter into that rest. You want to be part of that kingdom for the next 1,000 years and help rebuild this earth with King David. But if you got a different idea how this is all going to work out, you got 20 years to make it fit. Knock yourselves out. So that's where I see us right now. The Trump-Biden stuff going on, the pandemonium that's going on in the United States, the Russia-Ukraine war, the Israel-Iran war. I'll just say Iran because that's really who it is. They just blew up the Houthis big time yesterday. Yoo-hoo, go get them. But I also know that Israel's going to be defeated here soon. And then what? So I think I'm done, Sombra. I've run out of air.
Thanks, Brother Joe. I've actually got 4 points to bring up from things that you spoke about. Just that when you're talking about nuclear potential, it reminds me of Zechariah 14, verse 12, where it talks about the plague where their flesh shall decay, and they shall stand on their feet, and their eyes decay in their sockets, and their tongues decay in their mouths. I mean, it just almost sounds like how the flesh basically melts off their body with nuclear blast.
Well, let me just read you something that you skipped right over here. Zechariah 5, verse 1. And I again lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a flying scroll. So picture a flying scroll, right? Take a toilet paper roll and have it flying through the air. What's that look like? That's a flying scroll. And he said to me, what do you see? And I said, I see a flying scroll, and its length is 20 cubits, and its width is 10 cubits. And that is the exact same measurements as a Shahad missile from Iran. Verse 3. And he said to me, this is the curse that goes over the face of the whole earth. From now on, everyone who steals shall be cut off according to it. And everyone who swears from now on shall be cut off according to it. Swears and steals what? This is talking about Torah. Swearing falsely against Torah or stealing from Torah. I will bring it forth, says Jehovah of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief and into the house of him who swears falsely by my name. And it shall remain in the midst of this house, whoops, what just happened here? In the midst of his house, and should devour it, and its timbers and its stones. A nuclear bomb is the only thing that does that. Now, the vision of a woman in the basket, and the angel that talked to me and went forth and said to me, now lift up your eyes and see what this is that goes forth. And I said, what is it? And he said, this is the ephah that goes forth. And he said, this is their form in all the earth. And behold, a lead cover was lifted up, and a woman was sitting in the middle of the ephah. What is a woman in the middle of an ephah doing? And he said, this is wicked. It's a wicked woman. This is wickedness. And he cast it into the midst of the ephah, and he cast the lead stone over its opening. Why does it have to be a lead stone? Why can't it just be a normal stone? And I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, two women came out, and the wind was in their wings, for they had wings like the wings of a stork. And they lifted up the ephah between the earth and the heavens. And I said to the angel who talked with me, where are they going with the ephah? And he said to me to build a house for it in Shinar. And you all know where Shinar is. And it shall be established and set there on its own base. So the word, and Cyrus can show you this, the word Isha and Ish, if I got it right, Isha and Isha is a dot, and to change the dot or remove the dot is between a woman and a fire. That's why, men, when you're having an affair, you're playing with fire, right? That's what it's talking about. These two women are fires, two rockets pushing this flying scroll through the air. This wicked woman is another fire, this wicked fire inside a lead box. And you only put uranium inside a lead box. So it's describing you a nuclear holocaust that's about to begin. And we've just gone through it, and I've shown you step by step how I see that playing out in the very near future. So that's what you should put with that. What'd you say, Zechariah 14, Sam?
Yeah, verse 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Also, I was going to point out with the four horses, the pale horse, I think I wrote it on your website. The ISR translates it quite well. That word pale is actually, when you go back to the Hebrew root, it's actually green. So it's not pale. So the horses are red, black, white, and green. So
what's the colors of the Palestinian flag?
Those same colors.
What's the colors of the Iranian Revolutionary, or Iran?
I think they're the same colors, aren't they?
They don't have black. But a lot of the Arab countries have all three colors, all four colors, or a combination of them, or leaving off one.
Yeah.
So in the video that I sent you, it's going to explain what the armbands are and what's on those armbands, and on the headbands that you see Hamas, Hezbollah, the Revolutionary Guard. I don't know about the Houthi. I can't recall the Houthi, but most people, when they go to jihad, are wearing these same emblems, and they have the same wording on it. And we described that to you in the video. So I hope you get it, or somebody can post it back up here for the new people that come on afterwards.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And there's something else I wanted to point out, that in the meeting on the 6th of June in 2022, Brother Mark talked about Maholtz coming in the 30th of January 2023. He warned us about that. And he said that they went through the same constellations as the path when in 1965, right prior to Israel signing the treaty in 1966, and the Six-Day War in 67. And he warned us back on the 6th of June in 2022 to watch out around sort of November 2023, sort of 10 months.
He's off by a month. He's a false prophet.
Yeah, he missed by a month. He should have been earlier, October.
But what I didn't mention to you was the Abraham Accord was about to be signed just before that war broke out. The Abraham Accord was also just being signed in 2020. And that Abraham Accord, you keep an eye when they're about to sign it again. Watch out for something else about to happen.
Okay. Well, I just thought
Now,
it was
so
really.
if again, we, in our book, I don't know if you can see that, in our book, we wrote this book in 22. We then went back and added the epilogue. I did not change anything in this book. So in this book, I'm focused on September 22nd. In the epilogue, I show you where it actually did happen. It was October 7th. And we talk about the Abraham Accord and how it figures into everything. And each time they brought it up, disasters happen in the United States, and disasters happen in Saudi Arabia, and disasters happen in Israel.
All right. And the last thing that going back towards the beginning, and actually Brother Mark might describe this, because he talked about it a little bit last time, and it was really amazing, because you have your the cycles, as you know, and the last cycle of this 50 years starts in 2038, I believe. Anyway, Brother Mark was talking about the Dendera and the how it's in 2039, but he also had some other proofs from around the region. Did you want to briefly go through that again, Brother Mark? That was really interesting, how you basically within a year cemented the same dates, I guess, as Brother Joe. I can't hear you. Sorry. Yeah. You're muted.
Are you referring to the eclipse over Nineveh that I talked about?
Yeah, and how they had that documented. That was amazing.
Yeah, so it kind of collaborates everything that Joe's saying about the cycle that we're in. And in the slides, I'll show it in the slides, but they had discovered in the cuneiform tablets from that Nineveh, Babylon area, where Sennacherib, when he had ascended the throne, and what year he had gone into Palestine, which collaborates the scriptures in Kings, is it First, Second Kings, about when he was going to invade the land. But then they documented the solar eclipse and what year it was that the solar eclipse happened. Well, since they knew that this was in and around the 700s, so all you had to do is go to the solar eclipse page that NASA has and go back to the 700s, and you can find when there was an eclipse going over that Nineveh, Iraq area. And there was in 763 BCE, an eclipse happening right over it. And so they were able to now align these two documents with Hezekiah and Sennacherib to this 701 BCE date and come in alignment here. And so I was looking at Brother Joe's, I think I mentioned it last time. Brother Joe mentions that the temple is being built in is starting to be built in 967, and based on this chronology from the solar eclipse, from that chronology would be 966, and so it's within a year here, which is pretty startling. So, Joe, that's some more stuff to give you kudos on what you've put together. So it's that solar eclipse in Nineveh really is nailing down even more this cycle that we're in.
Yeah, I just thought that was so amazing. And then you had that when you brought that up last time, I just thought that was just more proof, I guess. It's just really, really mind blowing. Yeah, more proof. It's just mind blowing.
And it feels to me that, of course, I've shown all of you the things that I've seen about what's coming in the heavens in the 30s, and of course that Dendera zodiac at Hathor, and Brother Joe mentioned Hathor a little bit ago, which is where the solar eclipse is going to happen in 2027, right over the Hathor temple. So you've got a lot of things happening that I would agree with him that you've got this time period from here going forward. If this is the last cycle, there isn't a lot of time left. I mean, there's a lot of things have got to happen in this period of time before us. So yeah, but we're going to find out. We're going to see, and things are accelerating way faster than I thought. I mean, things are really moving forward. I'll show you some of the things that I have. This will be short. As I'd mentioned pre-show, that I had a lot of things happening over the last 10 days that I wasn't able to put a lot of things together, and there are a lot happening, even new things. There are new comets being discovered. New ones are popping up on my program, and I'm having to trace them and see where they're going and what constellations they're going through so I can kind of see what the story is. But we're going to begin here in July 29th of 2031, and this is kind of play into what Joe was talking about, going from 2031 in the charts that he had. But the Jupiter does a retrograde. Remember, retrograde is it crosses over, backs up, it crosses over again. And this view that we're looking at is from Jerusalem. The white line you see at the bottom is the horizon. If you were looking out, let's see, which way would you be looking? You'd be looking out at the eastern horizon, and sun is setting in the west, and the sun is just now set. You would see the foot of the Ophiuchus who's wrestling the serpent. Remember, he's a redeemer. He's a picture of a redeemer. So imagine a picture of Yeshua who's wrestling the enemy, stepping on the scorpion's head with his left foot. But that right foot is on the horizon, and Jupiter is doing a triple retrograde over the foot that's now coming to rest on the earth. And I saw this and I thought, this is crazy, because they're finding all of these footprints in Israel that that is in alignment with where Gilgal was, all these Gilgal locations, and how you see all these metaphorically in the scripture talking about where the earth is his footstool, where even Yeshua, his feet will come down and rest on the Mount of Olives, where it's this picture of that which is above the foot, the right foot of God coming down onto the earth, where the tabernacle was. All these Gilgals, the big giant footprints, is where the tabernacle had rested in all these instances. But what's crazy here is on the 9th of Av, when the temple was destroyed twice. What does this mean when Jupiter's going 3 times over the foot, as you're seeing it on the horizon, just touching what would look like touching the earth?
Mark, can I
Sure.
ask? So when you're dating this, are you using Julian dates or are you using Gregorian dates? Are you counting the year 0 is what I'm asking? Because if you are, that changes that by 1 year.
Okay, so this is going by the Gregorian date.
Okay. Because if that was the 2030 and his feet are touching down at that time, that's when I expect him to touch down in 2030 to split the mountain in half. Because we have to flee in 2030 at the same time.
And what's interesting about this is if the temple, with the temple being destroyed, it's like God is saying, my presence is leaving. But if we see this coming down on the day that it was destroyed twice, where he left, the presence left the 2 times before, it's very interesting. I mean, it's like, wow, this could have happened any other date, but for it to be doing this on that date, that's pretty awesome. So that's one of the things I wanted to show you. The other one is in 2044, Saturn does the same thing Jupiter does. Saturn does a retrograde over the left foot that's stepping on the scorpion. And this is happening in it begins in December of 2044. So another interesting thing in the heavens Again, since Joe's talking about 44 being the last year of the last cycle and 45 beginning the Jubilee, this retrograde continues all the way into June and July of 45. So it begins in December, continues for what would that be, almost 8 months. So a very, very interesting thing happening. And I like when I see things happening with those two planets because they move so slow. A lot of things can be, it's like they're on this longer cycle than the yearly ones like Venus and Mercury and Mars, or at least Venus and Mercury. So this was another interesting thing. And then I thought this was kind of interesting that as I was doing my looking in the heavens, I thought was kind of interesting. You have 3 years in a row of solar eclipses on the first day of the 7th month. I'm sorry, 2 years in a row on the 7th day, first day of the 7th month. And then in 35, it's the first day of the 6th month, which is, remember, traditionally, the first day of the 6th month begins the 40 days of repentance. And so you have three eclipses, solar eclipses. There's a partial, an annular, and then a total. And then in 2025, which will be a year from a couple months going forward, you'll have another partial happening on the 21st of September of 25. Again, the first day of the 7th month. So that's kind of interesting. You don't see them happening like that in a row. It's I thought was kind of unique and interesting. And again, because we keep pointing to the 30s, I'm guessing this is probably not coincidental. So thought I'd show you that. And then this is a new comet that came into my program, and it's called Atlas, and it's going into Sagittarius. This will be January 4th through the 15th, and we all know what's happening on the 6th. But this comet is going in. It'll be there from the 4th to the 15th as the new year begins. And I think, if I don't remember, I think Brother Cyrus was asking for stuff about January as well in 2025. So I thought this was kind of interesting. But it's called Atlas C 2024 G3 going into Sagittarius. And I'm pretty sure it stays in Sagittarius the whole time it's there. And so it's, again, since it's new, it's something I haven't talked about before. And but this is something we can see happening here. All right. If you have questions, you can stop me and I won't go forward. If you have questions, anyone have any questions on anything I've shown so far? Comments? Okay. December this year, Saturn will be in the smack dab middle of the water being poured out, the stream of water coming out of Aquarius. And the reason I thought that was kind of interesting, because I don't know how many of you saw the gentleman that was interviewed who had the dream about 4 months ago, the dream about President Trump being hit in the ear with a bullet. And he had talked about that he would win, but he said after he won, there would be an economic collapse. Now, I don't know if it all is true, it all works out like the ear part did, then it would be interesting that if the collapse happened in December or waited until after the inauguration in January, but Saturn is going to be in this stream for quite a few months. And so that's kind of interesting. What is being poured out, or what's the meaning of the pouring out with Saturn being there beginning in December? Don't know, but it is a sign in the heavens that we take note of and we watch to see what will come about as things unfold. And this is stuff you guys can add to your notes of things that you're making parallels with what you see. There is a big comet coming in 2031 in October. This thing is ginormous. And it is called Giacobini. I'm guessing what it is how it's pronounced. It first appears in the first day of the 7th month coming out of the dragon's mouth in October of, this would be in September of 31. So in September, when the 7th month begins that Israel is recognizing, The comet's going to be coming out of the dragon. It will be moving, and it gets big, as you can see here. When it crosses the ecliptic, it's going through Aquarius, goes into Sagittarius, and moves on. But it's moving fast, and it looks big, and it looks like it's going to be very bright. So, and I hadn't seen this one before. This is a new one that I've seen. Comet Giacobini in 10-10-31, and that's again playing into Joe's numbers.
Just so people know, I'm saying that the Great Tribulation begins in 2030 and ends with Satan being locked away in 2033 on the Day of Atonement. So what Mark is showing you here fits right in with what I'm saying.
Yeah. So very interesting stuff. And this is not refutable. This is stuff that the heavens, this is going to happen. This is the things that we're going to see. And then there is a comet in 2035 of May the 9th. And it's called, I did not put the name of the comet. Oh, I did not put the C. I did not put the name of the comet. I'm sorry. I will find that out. Maybe I'll look over here and see what it is on my other computer whenever Cyrus takes over, and I can get back to you what this comet is. But it will be in Aquila, and it first appears, this is why I'm putting it here, because it first appears on Passover, April 23rd, based on what the Jewish calendar, but it'll appear in Hercules, and that's what you see here. The visual you see here is when it's appearing first in Hercules on April 23rd, and then it moves on into Aquila later on in May. So obviously it's moving April and May, and you'll see it there, but that's happening in 2035. Very interesting. Right after the last red blood moon happens in 34, the last red blood moon's set up. So, all right, and then we have another new comet called Biela, and it will be in 1130 of 44. It first appears in Cygnus in November 23rd, and it goes through Hercules. The reason I thought this was interesting is because you can see that it goes between the two redeemers. It goes between Hercules and Ophiuchus, and it ends up in the scales of judgment by December the 10th of 44. So very interesting. So if the cycles, which everything seems to point to where the cycles are correct, and if we're in the last Jubilee cycle, then 44 here is the 7th year of this 7th cycle. So very interesting. Stuff to ponder on, I'm sure. This is a comet called Schwarzmann, and it appears in Bootes. But again, this is another comet appearing between two redeemers, between Hercules and Bootes, but it goes right through the crown, Corona Borealis. And then it moves, it goes in the mouth of Draco, it goes into Pegasus, it goes into Pisces, and then it goes into Cetus. So this comet is going to go between the two redeemers, through a crown, and through two dragons, as well as the flying horse Pegasus. So very, very interesting. And the Pisces, which we've been talking about, seems to represent the northern and southern kingdoms. So a very interesting comet. And this happens in May of 2033. Again, stuff happening around the times, all this stuff. I'm not picking these comets. This is just when they're appearing. This is what shows up. I'm not picking dates. These are just happening on this. They're just happening on these dates. So I want to be sure I'm not trying to pick stuff happening in these times and these dates. This is when the things appear, and I'm just making it known. This is what Sonia was referring to. This is from the Assyrian eponym canon, and George Smith is the man that did the work on it. And he points out here in 763 that they documented in the documents that the sun was eclipsed in the month of Sivan. And this was in 763 BCE. And I went on my computer program to verify it. And it was we'll show it here in a second. It was in, this says 762, but it was actually 763, June 15th. we have a total solar eclipse happening right over Nineveh. This is right out of the Cyrus cycle. So verification of what this was happening, which would have been the time, more than likely, most likely, the time of possibly that this happened. So anyway, and then they had here the 701. The note was Sennacherib was going into both in 2 Kings 18:13 and in the documents found in the Nineveh area, that they documented that there was an expedition to Palestine in 701, and you can see in 2 Kings the same thing. So they had pinpointed the 701, since it does say here the year that Sennacherib ascended the throne. You can see here 705, he ascended the throne down here on the bottom. And then you can see here, if he ascended in 705, it would be the 4th year of his reign, but it would be the 14th year of Hezekiah's reign. And we have a match of 701 BC between the two records, which is interesting.
Mark,
Yes.
that is really keen information, because it also proves 2 Kings 19:29, the sabbatical year, which is the 49th year, and the 50th year being 700 BC. So what this information is just another proof that we didn't have before.
Yep. I like it when more detail comes out and gives more credibility to what we're talking about. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But that, if it hadn't been for that record of that solar eclipse, we probably couldn't have done it. But the solar eclipse really helped narrow it down, because it now made it very easy to figure out. Some guy figured out, hey, that's a solar eclipse, we can find out when that was. I would have done the same thing, but he was thinking like me that, hey, there's records of that, and he found it. So it was really cool. From May 28th to June in 2031, this is very interesting, and I want to share with you. These are two comets, and these are both Schwarzschild comets. They're two comets named the same. The comet on the right is passing from Bootes to Coma Berenice. Remember, Coma Berenice is if you go reversal from where Jupiter is, which is almost where the King Star is, this is almost the same path that Maholtz makes in 2033. But it's a reversal direction. It's going to go from Bootes into Coma, which is the desire of the nations, over into Leo, crossing over probably at the same time Jupiter's doing the retrograde over the King Star. This comet's going to be passing over that King Star and King Planet, which is extremely amazing. And the one on the left is going to continue on from Bootes, and it goes on and over into the crab. It goes into Cancer, where the sheepfold is. So it's just I'm like, wow, two comets moving side by side together in the 30s here, especially 31. It's another interesting heavenly sign that we're going to be seeing. And just, again, this is when I'm scanning my program, these are the things I see, and I look and see what the date is, and that's the date. Wish I could make it up that well, but I can't. So I have a few other dates for you. I didn't have enough time to get other slides for you, but there will be Saturn will be in Virgo. Let me rephrase that. At the time the temple was built, according to the dates that Joe has, and based on the dates we have from the things found in Nineveh, Saturn would have been in Virgo at the time the temple was being built. It will be in that same spot again in 2039.
Whenabouts, Brother Mark? Whenabouts in 2039?
The Saturn will be in the same spot in 2039.
Yeah. Do you have a month, or just in general?
I don't have the month. I'll have to look for that. I did not write it down here.
Okay.
We talked about Atlas in January. I highlighted the ones I knew that Joe and Cyrus would be looking for going forward until January and February. And there's a possible collision of an asteroid. It's called 2007 FT3. And they're saying it's possible collision in October the 5th this year. And if it happened at October 5th, it would be visually seen in Lupus, the constellation Lupus.
Collision with what?
Say again?
Collision with what?
Us.
The Earth.
Yes. This is a possible scenario that has been put out there, that this asteroid 2007 FT3 could possibly have an impact in October of this year. Also, the last thing I have for you guys, I mean, I have a lot of things, but obviously I'll leave some of this rest of the stuff for other shows, but there will be 3 comets united in Virgo's feet on October the 15th.
This year?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me see if I can tell you what their names are. Let's see. I'll find it for you. I don't have it here in front of me, but 3 will be in the feet of. Obviously, we know one of them
found
is
it.
that.
It's 15th of October 2024. No, you didn't give us the names of them. You said both pass into Ophiuchus, is that right? At the same time and land in the head of Sagittarius on the 19th of November.
Repeat that one more time.
So on the 15th of October 2024, 3 comets united at the feet of Virgo. This
Yes.
year they won't be as bright, but they will be 3 of them. Both
Correct.
pass into Ophiuchus at the same time and both unite in the head of Sagittarius on the 19th of November.
Thank you. Yes. Yep. Okay. I'm ready for Brother Cyrus.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Brother Mark and Brother
Yep.
Joe. And if anyone has any comments or any questions, if you just pop them in the comments, that would be great. So, Brother Cyrus, if you have something to share, that'd be awesome.
You're muted, that Cyrus.
Yeah, I'm
He won't let me talk.
Vaughn was getting a little enthusiastic about Brother Mark's dates because I've got one on either side of that. So remember the April 8th eclipse, the Aleph Tav, because of the one in 2017 and then October of 2023, formed an Aleph, and then it made 2 intersections, which were Tav. So let's see if this is a one-off. Is it, is this something that's just, flash in the pan? Who knows? But I kind of got a little curious about Hurricane Beryl. And so Hurricane Beryl seemed to be going pretty much over the same terrain. And when you put the one over the other, this is what you come up with. I just thought that was kind of interesting, a coincidence. They happen all the time. So it was something that April 8th may have been a wake-up day for America. Hey, wake up. And then Hurricane Beryl is too late. But anyway, I don't know. I just thought it was a very interesting coincidence. But go back to our last meeting, and we talked about some dates. We have another cycle coming up. It's going to begin about August 13th of this year. And it's going to increase its intensity, and I cannot give you a number. Okay. The intensity is not, I can't calculate it because it's just not possible for me to calculate using the old formula. But the day of the increase in intensity is August 27th. An interesting thing is going to happen on August 28th. Producer, could I get that chart up? We get a planetary alignment on August 28th.
Wow.
And not only that, it is 4 of the largest planets in our solar system, in addition to Mars, Venus, and Mercury. And
What year?
Sir?
What year?
This year, next month. Next month. So the day that the intensity increases on August 27th, the next night, you'll see this in the sky just before the sunrise. Okay, it'll be very faint, and it's going to form a straight line. And whenever we see planetary alignments, there's another thing that we see. We kind of get, an increase in tectonic activity. Now, remember, these things don't move like sports cars. Mercury, Venus, and Mars do, compared to Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, and Uranus. Mercury's a sports car. I mean, that sucker's running around the sun very quickly. But as these things begin to move into alignment, there will be more gravitational forces pulling on the Earth both ways, because this is my theory or opinion. Most solar systems in the universe are 2-star solar systems. Okay? So we only have one. That's kind of odd. But if you look at the composition of Jupiter, which is metal formed from gas, hydrogen and helium, the composition to hydrogen to helium in Jupiter is only 3 percentage points different from our sun right now, actively warming and lighting our solar system. And it's my hypothesis that either before Genesis 1, Jupiter went into a nova and destroyed much of our solar system that we have today. And in verse 2, it says that the earth became void and formless. That could have been what happened, possibly. It may not have been, but it's a possibility. And if you look in Jeremiah 4, you'll see a scripture about everything was destroyed, even the cities, the birds, the animals, and mankind. So where was that? Because we see what took place with Noah. There were 8 people saved, but in Jeremiah 4, no one was saved. All right. So, and here's one more little piece of evidence. If you look at all the planets in the solar system, all of them but one line up with the equator of Jupiter. And the only one that doesn't not line up with the equator of Jupiter is Mercury. Why? Could it be a remnant from the past position? If Jupiter blew up and there was a planet close to it, between it and Mars, then there would be a lot of debris in the area between Mars and Jupiter. Well, that's what we call the asteroid belt. Okay. The Earth could have been very far out, but the shock of the nova affected Earth. I'm just postulating, that's all. But I believe what happened is that it blew Venus completely out of orbit, and we see Venus shooting across the sky, as recorded in several rock art forms, and it finally came to rest where it is today, but it's completely backwards from the other planets. Okay, its rotation, everything's backwards from the other planet. But you'll see in a lot of old artwork or rock art, this blazing star going across the sky. That may have been Venus. It may have happened, I'm postulating, it may have happened, came across, talking about Sennacherib, when the night came and the two bodies, the Earth and Venus, crossed the ecliptic. What happens when two bodies cross an ecliptic like that? You get what is called a tube, a discharge tube. We saw it when the comet Ison went across Mars a number of years ago, and it lit the atmosphere of Mars up for a few seconds. That very same thing may have happened and killed 185,000 Assyrian soldiers. So wouldn't that be interesting if Jehovah used a star to kill all of those soldiers? But anyway, I'm just throwing this out there because this alignment, it's not unusual, but it's just interesting because the day before it appears is an increase in the intensity of this cycle that we're going to enter on August 13th. Okay? So going into September of this year, the next increase in intensity will be September 10th. The maximum intensity will be between September 24th and 25th, which
Cyrus,
me,
you need to remind
Sorry?
everybody, when you say intensity, what are you talking about? You're talking about the crazy cycle.
it is. This whole year is in the crazy cycle. Go back and read my post that I posted in January of this year where I called it the year of chaos. Okay, it's been nothing but chaos this year.
Lines up with Revelation 8,
Yes,
the
yeah,
great mountain going into the sea.
exactly. So we have this year of chaos. That's what I called it because I'm thinking about the Leviathan. The Leviathan is the god of chaos. Okay. So anyway, we have this going on. Now, I'm not sure of my dates. I haven't done all the due diligence that I should, but it's quite possible for me that maybe this could line up with Sukkot for me. Maybe. What I did as we were going into Passover, I told the Kahal, be on the lookout for a major development to take place. Let's see, March 25th, March 26th. That was Passover night and unleavened bread morning. What happened that morning? A container ship hit the Francis Scott Key Bridge and shut down the largest port in America. Okay? So I told everybody, all right, if that really was, something that might have been related to the cycle, watch for something that could happen, May 18th or 19th. And the last time we were together, I forgot, and it was Julia that reminded me. Julia, nothing that I could remember at the time happened on May 18th or 19th, but Julia reminded me and she said, Cyrus, you forgot the president of Iran was killed on May 19th, President Raisi, and they're still investigating that crash because it was under suspicious circumstances. Okay, so something happened May 25th, May 26th, and May 18th into 19th. So it's possible something could happen around, 17th of September all the way to the 25th of September, somewhere in that possibility. Okay, the maximum intensity is September 24th and 25th. This is really going to be wild because we have this cycle starting in August and it goes all the way into November. Is there anything taking place in November that anybody can think of? Oh, an election. I forgot about that. How about that?
Cyrus, do you remember what you said last year for the fall? Do you remember the craziness of last year? Do you remember that one?
No, sir. I haven't been able to calculate intensity since the end of 2022. Okay, that was the last time I could really calculate it because we're in this very active solar cycle and we're getting bombarded. In fact, let's see, did something happen last week? I don't know, but anyway, we had an X-class flare erupt and barely grazed us. If it would have hit us, you would have never seen the internet light up about, oh, wait a minute, the internet shut down. That's right. What else happened back then? Oh, President Trump. Okay. How about that? We had an X-class flare coming to and bombarding us and leaving us those 3 or 4 days. Do you see how people are reacting to this bombardment of the radiation coming from the sun as directed? I hate to use that word because it sounds like the moon is out there kind of plotting where it's going to move things. That's not it. It's just the position of the moon and its gravity that draws the radiation into or away from the earth. Because when it gets between us and the sun, it protects us. But when it moves away, then we get bombarded. If there's a big flare, X-class flare, like this past week, it was an X1.9, which is big enough to shut down communications. Let me see, wasn't there something called CrowdStrike that shut down airplanes around the world and internet, and doctors couldn't operate on patients because they couldn't access the programs? And isn't that interesting? It was coincidence. It's a coincidence. Okay. All right. The lunar eclipse is September 17th and 18th. Remember what I tell you on how to calculate the peak of the cycle. You go from the lunar eclipse the 14 days later to the solar eclipse. Okay, so 14 days later, that's October 3rd. That's real close to Sukkot, isn't it? So the peak of this cycle will be right at the end of September, at the beginning of October, when we're celebrating, or when our alcohol is celebrating Sukkot and Shemini Atzeret. So, I remember, when Brother Joe was talking, I remember we were talking in 2021, brother, and I think Brother Mark was with us as well. And I said, I'm looking for war to break out in the spring of 2022, and it's going to be around Russia, Ukraine, and that area. And Brother Joe said, I don't see anything. It's like, what day did it break out on? My birthday. I mean, I thought that was really nice of him to do that on my birthday, February 24th of 2022. That's how I remember it. So anyway, But think about the last few weeks, just the last 2 or 3 weeks. You know, Vladimir Lenin, not Putin, Lenin, years ago said there are some decades that nothing happened, and there are some weeks when decades happen. I believe that we're in a week or past 3 or 4 weeks where decades happen. Think about it. When's the last time a sitting president is resigning rather than running for re-election? Well, let me see. Nixon, he quit because of the Watergate scandal. Before that was LBJ. He could have run another 4 years, but he chose to resign. When was the last time we had a presidential attempted assassination? That would be President Ford when Squeaky Fromm, one of the followers of Charles Manson, tried to shoot him as he walked through shaking hands with everybody. That was in, what, 73, I believe it was. Before that, President Kennedy. But, you heard Vaughn there. What about Reagan? Okay, what about Reagan? That was 1980 or 81. That's decades ago, right? We're seeing decades happen in weeks. Time is accelerating. It's speeding up. We're going to have to be prepared for this speeding up of events that's going to take place. You know, I keep telling people, and I'm hoping, I'm wrong. I hope we have an election, because if we do, we can argue about it later. But if we don't have an election, it's because I believe that they're going to turn the table over. You know, when you're playing a game and somebody's losing and they turn the table over, it's because they're losing. So I believe the table could be turned over in September, October, maybe even early November, so that we don't have an election. That's bad.
So can I just jump in on that a little bit?
Yes, sir. You bet.
So we've had this debate going on in our group for a few years now that these trumpet plagues or these end time scenarios should all be starting in the fall. And I've been arguing, no, they start Aviv 1. So we've been going back and forth. We just don't know.
No.
But if we look at the events last year, you said we were going into a peak cycle in the fall. And then October 7th happened.
Yep.
And now you're saying that this fall, from August 28th to September 5th or 25th, again, another peak cycle. And if the trumpet plagues that I'm talking about take place at the 6 months before, because that's when you go out to look for the moon in the evening, we could be lining up here for some major stuff coming up this fall. So my mountain going to the sea could be starting this fall, is what I'm suggesting.
Yes, sir. I believe that's a strong possibility. I don't want to see it, and I hope I don't see it, but I think things are lining up for that very thing to take place, to where it could be I think it's something we need to look for. Be diligent and look for. Okay? So the cycle will, like I said, it will persist over into the first week of November. And nothing going on there. So
I actually have a couple of questions. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, there was a couple of questions from people. So one of the questions for Cyrus was, how often do these planetary alignments happen?
Well, there will be another one in the spring, I think in February of 2025. Remember, they're called the gaseous giants. That's Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. they'll stay in alignment for quite some time. But it takes Mars and Venus and Mercury spinning several times to line up again. So it'll line up again in 2025. I think it's I think it's February.
Is that with all 7 or less?
I'm sorry?
Is that with all 7? Because there were 7 planetary bodies there in alignment. Will it be all 7 again in alignment in 2025?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And this question was for kind of for everyone, I guess. It was what has surprised you or concerned you most about what you see in the things that you normally look at in your analysis, I guess.
Once again, it goes back to conversation that Brother Joe and Brother Mark and I had, I think it was 2 years ago. And Brother Mark asked a question and got me. It's like, I don't know how that would work. Because he said, can you have the effects of a solar maximum take place in a solar minimum? It's like, I don't know. And then what we have is we're in a solar maximum with some of the things that would happen in a solar minimum, which was kind of the reverse of what he asked, but it's exactly the same type of thing. What is really affecting us right now is the sun. I can't remember. I think there's 37 sunspots on it right now. 37. This year we have not seen a day without sunspots. Last year we didn't see a day without sunspots. But the thing is there's more sunspots per day this year than there were last year. Now, my time frame that I'm looking at, and I had Brother Mark check it out the last time we got together, and I asked him, do you see the moon doing anything around October 23rd, 24th, or 25th? And so he checked it out, and I don't remember exactly what it was. Brother Mark might, but I think the moon went into the sheepfold on the 23rd. Okay. So I'm looking at that as being a very important time in this cycle, because there's a deflection day on October 22nd. And I'm thinking, well, if it decreases or deflects on October 22nd, then for the next 2 or 3 days, we could see something important take place. So we could see something happen. And I'm just saying, it's possible, folks. I'm not a prophet. I'm not even a good prognosticator. I'm like a weather forecaster. I get it wrong about half the time. But here's the thing. When we see things starting to line up that in the past have meant things like Brother Mark does for Maholtz and the other comets, hey, this happened during the flood. This happened right before, all the other events took place. Then maybe if this happens again, maybe we'll see something happen. It's a possibility. So October 22nd is a deflection day.
I have a question.
Have you seen the chat? Did you see the chat with Zara? Zara's put up that October the 24th is the next meeting of the BRICS nations.
Okay, I didn't know that, but that's, who knows what will come out of that. But here's the thing. When cycles decrease in the past, they would drop by 10 or 20%, 10 or 20%. And like I've explained in the last 2 meetings that we've had, our cycles don't decrease. They just gradually continue going up. So October 24th is the day that I'm hoping something is going to happen that will allow me to once again begin calculating cycles. Because we're building up into this really crazy period of time. And what we have going on, I expect to see more of, and that is atmospheric phenomena. Remember, I've been talking about that for about the last 2 years. October of 2024, and the peak day would be the 24th of October. So it's a big coincidence. All right. It's things happen at that period of time, especially the month of October, late October. A lot of times your biggest collapses, financial collapses, happen in late September or October. Sometimes they'll happen in November or December. In fact, and I think it was summer of 2018, I predicted or forecasted that there would be a collapse right before Christmas of 2018, but it would come back on January 1st of 2019. And it did. And it was, that next year when I was talking about, I didn't know it was COVID, but I said something's coming out of China. It's going to go around the world and affect the price of oil. And then that's when Brother Joe said, "What are you talking about?" It's like, well, I don't know.
I didn't say that. I said you're crazy.
Yeah, well, he said that too. Yeah. So these are just stepping stones, and we've seen this stepping stone in the past. It's come around before November of 2019, but this time it's October of 2024. So something big could happen either side of October of 2024 that, could possibly affect most of us on the Western Hemisphere.
I'm just looking in the comments. Cyrus also mentioned that the US is expected to launch the first crewed mission to the moon in 52 years in November. Isn't that the same month of the election? Everything's happening. Oh,
Just do like I do. It's a coincidence. It's a coincidence.
Wow. Does anyone
So
have any?
I didn't want to take a whole lot of time, but I wanted to point that out, that we're coming into a very unstable period of time because of the intensity of the radiation that is bombarding the planet coming from the sun. And it's only going to increase between now and October 2024. It may increase. Now, let me put this out there. Your solar scientists are saying that it may actually spike in October of 2024 and persist all the way through 2025. So if they're saying it's going to spike, how in the heck are we going to measure that? We can't measure what we're getting right now. So if it does spike in October of 2024 and persist all the way through 2025, 2025 is going to be a nightmare.
So I have a question.
Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
For Brother Joe. So,
well, can I ask, sorry, before we move away from that?
Yes.
When you told us about the China thing, you gave us a location. You said where it was going. For 2025, do you have a location as to where this is peaking over or anything like that?
Not in 2025. I have not looked that far ahead. I've got to get my head.
October 24 then?
Okay, October 2024. That's going to be the Western Hemisphere. Basically from Japan to Great Britain, which puts us North and South America.
So basically you're confirming a great mountain going into the sea, Revelation 8.
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly.
Very cool. Okay, I'm good, Mark.
I was going to ask you, that's awesome stuff.
Actually, I'm great. I'm great, Mark.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, and I know you've had on your cycle and in your book, when things you're saying likely could happen. So when are you thinking the greater Exodus is going to take place? What year?
The greater exodus is going to take place in the fall of 29, leading up to 30. So that exodus is the exodus coming out of captivity. In order to come out of captivity, you have to go into captivity. So before 29, this great mountain going into the sea has got to go into captivity. So the other thing I forgot to mention, in Daniel 8, it also talks about from the time that the abomination or the daily is taken away, from the time that the daily is taken away, will be 2,300 days. And that brings you to, if we use the March 25th date as being our accurate date, that brings us to July 12th, 2026. And that's when I believe the two witnesses will begin to show up and start to place their curses on the world. Why July 12th? I don't know. Just that's the numbers I get. So
that was July 12th, 2026.
July 12th, 2026 is 2,300 days from the time that Netanyahu declared his first lockdown on March 25th, 2020, from the time that the daily was taken away.
I don't know if you guys have been hearing it, but there's a lot of rumors coming out of China. I posted it for alcohol, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that President Xi has had a massive stroke and is on life support. So that means that if that is it, then they will be coming up for an election, I believe, this fall. I'm not sure what day, but the committee, the Communist, Party of China, will be coming up for a committee meeting. I believe it is this fall, and if it's true, then they will appoint someone else as president in his place if he lives that long. I don't know. So we could see a massive shift in power take place this fall in China. Remember, we talked about this, I think Brother Joe and I talked about it in 2020 or 2021. President Putin and President Xi are both moderates. I know people think they're crazy, but they're not. Like I've said, President Putin is a martial artist. He has numerous black belts in judo, jiu-jitsu. He's a concert pianist, and he's also an avid chess player. All three of these things require timing, patience, and observation. Okay? President Xi, I don't know a whole lot about him, but he is a very cautious man. And he says things that are somewhat shrouded when he says them. There are others behind him coming up, really wanting to take his place, that aren't so careful in their words, and they're ready to take Taiwan back, tomorrow if they come to power. It's like Dmitry Medvedev. He's ready to nuke, Western Europe and the United States tomorrow. You don't want Dmitry Medvedev taking Vladimir Putin's place, okay? But we could see a massive shift in the Chinese Communist Party take place this fall, which would put us once again back into dangerous territory in late 2024 or all of 2025.
There's just one more thing to add to the mix, right? Boy, there's a question for Cyrus. Can the spike measurements not be measured due to it not going back down and exceeding 100% when heading back up?
Please say that again, Sonia.
Sure. The question is, can the spike measurements not be measured due to it not going down sorry, not going back down and exceeding 100% when heading back up.
Yes, we're exceeding 100% now. Okay, but they can continue up. Remember, this is open-ended, just like it is for an earthquake. You know, there's no end to the earthquake scale. It just, you know, we haven't seen anything much over a 9 or a 10, but you could have one. And talking about earthquakes, when you see this planetary alignment, you start to get gravimetric forces. The sun pulling one way and the big gaseous giants pulling another. We could see some instability in the fault lines. We're already seeing instability in the fault line. So this could increase as we go into the fall as well.
And you said the planets are aligning on August 28th?
Yes, sir. Right before sunrise.
I'm looking for a major earthquake. I need a major earthquake to fit into Daniel's 6 or Revelation 6 and Revelation 8 in my chronology.
Well, I'll see if I can whip one up for you.
And you said the second one was in 27, you said, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, see if you can do that for me, Cyrus, please.
Yeah, I will.
The reason I asked,
I had joked about sending a Burl up into going up to Ohio and Indiana and up in that area, and that's where it went. But I was joking with some of the folks in the Cahal that I was going to send it up to them so they could get a little rain. And they wrote back, "We got our rain."
so the reason I asked you about the exiles is because I'm looking into a correlation of two comets that made appearances back in the 530s BCE when they were returning out of Babylon. That is making appearances again from 2027, actually 2026 to 2031. And they made several appearances in the 30s, the 530s. So very interesting. And I haven't got it all finished, but if I'm my theory is
you do this every time. At the end of it, when you shut down, you tell us all this gold stuff at the end that you.
No, well, I'm not done with it. But I'm saying if I didn't have your part of it when you're saying it's happening. So if I can see and as I finish this, if I can find that what you're saying is collaborated between what happened then and what is happening going forward in front of us. This would be along the lines of another Maholtz type of comet thing. So I got some work still to finish on because I'm not done.
Well, so also look at the Exodus date. We're talking about the second greater Exodus, and that the 530 there was no great Exodus. There's a number of different waves when they left Babylon, so it really wasn't in one big shot. So I would be concentrating or looking more around the Exodus of 1337 BC, and make sure you use that date, not the 1450 or the 1250 date.
1337?
1337 BC. Let me just confirm that. 1379.
1379
BC. That was the date that the Exodus took place at Passover. So
what you're saying is if I could find that comet or a comet that happened then, that happened somewhere around the Babylon,
Passover 2030.
Yeah, or around Passover 2030, and happened somewhere around when they say that they came out of Babylon, we could have something very interesting.
You have my ears piqued.
Oh boy, that means we're going to have to meet again.
Yeah, because again, we have to go into captivity before we can come out of captivity, before we can have this Exodus. Right, we're not in captivity now. We're having this meeting and we can fly wherever we want right now. You're not restricted. But unless that time comes when you cannot buy or sell, unless you got the mark, that is a captivity that we would have to come out of. So I'm looking if the woman is going to flee into the wilderness for 3.5 years, for time and a half time, and Isaiah says that she's there for Moab, in Moab, then we have to be brought back to the land of Judea, to Jerusalem, in order to flee into Moab, in order to go through that mountain. If those 2 feet that you're talking about are landing on the earth of Ophiuchus, if that's a sign that he's about to touch down, and you said, I think, 27.
Yeah, the feet touching. Ward says, I think it's for Cyrus, will the increased energy levels in the atmosphere combined with the comet dust result in signs in the sky that were recorded in ancient petroglyphs?
Yes, and I put in that, like I've been telling people, I believe we're going to see an increase in atmospheric fairies and atmospheric sprites around the world. This is where the Earth will shoot energy back into space. Remember,
Yeah.
until the 1980s, it was thought to be folks' tale, wives' tale. But then the first one was seen and recorded in the 1980s. But we have seen some very beautiful ones in the last 5 years. And it's building up. As you know, the dust particles left over from, Halley's Comet and other comets that come through, when they hit our atmosphere, they charge the upper atmosphere, just like you're exciting the liquid that has 2 different metals in it. You use whatever, copper and steel, and you put a liquid like sulfuric acid, something like that, and you stir it up with a spoon. It excites the buildup of a charge. It's got to discharge somewhere, so it's going to shoot up into space. Path of least resistance.
So this 2 comets I showed you that were going to be in June of 31, they made some astounding appearances in the 500s and the 530s, that area there. So I'm going to look to see if I can prove that they came in the 1379 time. We're going to have a connection.
All right.
Interesting. There was another question also.
And it
Sorry.
could be that if this dual one, because usually they're coming singular, this dual one could have a very interesting implications to it, especially the path that it's taking. So just thoughts I have, and I'll be doing my homework for you to see if I can find out.
Awesome. There's another question back up that didn't get asked. It was from Jenny, and she asked, do the sunspots increase the chance of a grid breakdown, especially before the US election?
Okay, I heard part of that. Due to the sunspots increase.
Oh, sorry. She said, do the sunspots increase the chance of a grid breakdown, especially 2 weeks before the US election?
Oh, yes, very, very possible. Very possible. I mean, right now, CloudStrike is being blamed on a bad upload or something like that. But is that the real story? I don't know, because it took place when we were getting hit by the backside. I mean, it's kind of like President Trump's ear. We just got hit on the ear as we went by with this X 1.9 solar flare. So that was enough to take down satellite communication, things of that nature, for a period of time, several hours or even a day or two. And it just happened to coincide with this CrowdStrike update.
I had wondered if the clip in the ear, the bullet in the ear, was a sign to America that America is not listening to the warnings and the call of the Almighty to turn to Him, because it's the Shema, right? It's the hearing, and it's not just hearing, but it's obeying. And so it's very interesting that it was the ear. So
Yeah. What happened on? See, it was the last of the first day and the first of the second day of the Republican National Convention. We had a lady lead the group in prayer to a Punjabi god, Bawashara, I think his name is. But look it up, it's recorded. She gets up there and sings this prayer to this Hindu, not Hindu, but Sikh. It's a Sikh god. Shalit, what's her name? Shalit something. And it's a pagan god. And this is that universality that you find in Hinduism. Okay? Whatever God you serve is the God. Well, that's not true. We know that. Jehovah is the Most High Elohim. Okay? All these other gods are pretenders. You know, Brother Joe was talking about Jehovah doing battle with the other gods, Exodus 12:12. And it continues today. It's still going on. Okay? But they invoke this blessing from this Punjabi god, Sikh god, on the first day and the second day, one to end the meeting and one to begin the meeting. And I think it's like Bawesura or something like that, Buashara, something like that.
It's in the chat.
Go. There, it's in the chat. Wahaguru, Wahaguru. I don't know about you, but my creator is not named Wahaguru. Okay, so this is getting into the idea that if we're worshiping a God, then we're religious and we're conservative and we're okay. I'm not saying Donald Trump believes that, but the people at the Republican National Convention believe it, or else they wouldn't have had this person praying to a pagan god.
Well, just take a look at the Buddha statue at the rave last year.
Exactly.
You know, don't ignore these things and think, well, this doesn't mean anything. Jehovah takes them deadly serious. We are in the 10 days of awe. We are in the 10 years of judgment starting. I thought of the Aviv, maybe it started last fall. So, you know,
some have mentioned that because the things of Egypt came to America, meaning the arches and the obelisks came to America, that literally we are in Egypt because the symbols of Egypt are here, and one could say, or I've heard it said that that this could also be that we're in captivity under the Egyptian, which again, if they're allowing at the convention all these prayers going, the things that were happening that got the Northern Kingdom kicked out, which literally their captivity had already began in the deeds that they were doing. It just got fulfilled in God booting them out, just like the Canaanites. But so it could be that we're already in it, in the fact that with the stuff that's being allowed.
I agree. I have actually been up in the Washington Monument. That thing is an obelisk, okay? It's the largest freestanding stone masonry obelisk in the world. And if you look in there, and as you walk under the threshold and you turn around and look up, there's George Washington wearing his Masonic apron. Yeah.
Well, we're living in Babylon, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Well, that was amazing, guys. Does anyone have any more questions or comments before we wrap up? All quiet on the Western Front? Awesome. Okay, well, I think that there's enough little tidbits for the next meeting. I think is going to be coming up now that Brother Mark's brought the extra little bits up.
He's going to come up with more once you turn off the mic. Watch. Every time. I forgot to show you this part.
Okay, well, since Brother Cyrus opened in prayer, Brother Joe, would you like to close in prayer?
Sure. Our Father Jehovah, our King, our Creator. We're in that time of judgment. We pray, Father, that you would forgive us our sins. Help us to put on our white robes of righteousness. Help us to be ready. Help us not to be distracted by all these other things, but help us to focus on you, on knowing you. As you told, Yeshua said in John, if we're going to know you, we got to know Torah, because you wrote in the Torah all about Yeshua. Help us to understand, Father. Help us to come to know you at deeper levels, but to come to know you. So we ask your blessing, Father, upon all those who are trying to learn from the things that we're sharing. We thank you for the knowledge that you've given us and being able to share it. Just bless us, Father, with the wisdom to understand, to put that knowledge to use. It's not just for us. We have to share it with others. We have to warn others. We have to tell others, time's up. Or you're going to require their blood from us for being silent. So I just pray, Father, that you encourage everybody, help them to understand. There are people here that are just starting out, people here have been for a long time. They all have to get out there and do this work. It's not up to Mark, it's not up to Cyrus, not up to me. It's not up to any individual, it's up to all of us. So we just ask, Father, that you help us open the doors you want us to go through, give us those opportunities to share. And we pray that you be with us and guide us. Help us to see what you want us to see. And we just thank you, Father, for the opportunity that we know the things that we do know. May we give great glory to your name in everything that we do. In the name of Jehovah, I pray and give you thanks. Amen.
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 Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. And if you can all stay on while this gets wrapped up.
Okay.
Thanks.